It's 10:01 a.m. I hereby call the meeting of the Finance Standing Committee to order for April 25th, the regular April 25th, 2023 meeting. We have a quorum, though at this point, one member of the committee is absent, Amy Wyatt. Everybody else is here. I have no report, chairman's report, but I do want to introduce who has, and maybe Mr. McElhenney can say a few words, our new general manager, Matt McElhenney. You want to speak?
Well, yeah,
please do.
I got to meet most of you. Thank you.
Well, bear in mind with the camera. Everybody should remember with the camera that it's basically focusing right at this level, and what people see. What people see is so we've had this is good. This is fun.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I was able to meet the board here, and I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to analyzing the budget, get to learn more about the budget, work closely with Mrs. Fritz. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Yeah, everybody should watch out about that. Watch out for that camera. And okay, so thank you very much. We'll continue actually to item D, which is committee member communications. Does anyone on the committee have a announcement, a brief report on her, his or her activities, or a question to ask clarification? Hearing and seeing none, I'll move on to public comment. This is one member of the public is shaking his head here. We have this is a time when people from the public, either via Zoom, remotely or in person, can speak on any item of interest within the jurisdiction of this committee that's not on the agenda today. You can also talk about future agenda items if you want to. In compliance with the Brown Act, we cannot discuss or act on items not on the agenda. So we can't get into discussions with the speakers about what they bring up. I do have 3 written comments that were submitted through the website, I believe. And they're all from Linda Prentice. And they're dated, one's dated March 29th, April 13th, and April 21st. I'll read them in order. They're all short. First one is, please convey my outrage that a large park with several bathrooms would even be considered when I've owned 5 lots in Norwich, the assessment numbers given, and I cannot build on. Where is your fairness? And then with another comment, although I am for children's activities, if the agenda item regarding skate park is enlargement, I am against it due to additional bathroom requirements, e.g. water usage, until at least 100 building permits are issued. And finally, third letter, please reconsider the building moratorium by allowing 100 permits. Please let me live my last years on my dream property. Yes, I'm over 75. That's all from Linda Prentice, the resident of Cambria. Moving on to the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes. Does anyone have an addition or a correction to make to the minutes? I have just one. It is on page 4 of the agenda, or page under the regular business heading. About halfway down on the page, it has Cindy's Vice Chair Stidell's name spelled without the T. So you saw that. If you can find that, make that correction. Does anybody else have any corrections to make on the minutes? But Amy did a very good job on that. There's no further discussion and no public comment. I don't think so. I'll take. Oh, we have a question. Good, thank you.
Because we don't know how many other folks are out there.
It's a good idea, actually. Well, we have invites. We have attendees. It's a good thing to point out. Attendees. We have 3 people. One is Karen, just Karen, Michael Calderwood, and Michael Thomas. 3 attendees, and of course Don Howell is here in person. I'll entertain a motion on the minutes. Vice Chair Stidel is moves to adopt the minutes with that one correction is noted. A second? Second from, second from
The left.
committee member Dow. How about a show of hands on the vote? The motion passes 4 ayes, no nays, 1 absent. Now moving on to the agenda, I don't have this right. Yeah, regular business 3A. This is the quarterly budget update, and I'll unless Mr. McElhenney, you want to present, or Denise, Ms. Fritz, okay, Ms. Fritz, yeah, she can present this and summarize the updates and to the budget that are included here. And I think I think we had a discussion about she wants some input, and Oscar, maybe say this, flesh this out a little bit, input into the presentation of the information in ways in which we might want to improve it, or if we like what she's doing at this point, and so forth. So Denise, why don't you just take it from here?
Okay, agenda item 3A is a review of the third quarter budget report. Staff recommends finance committee discuss and review the fiscal year 22-23 third quarter budget report, proposed budget adjustments, and approve the recommendations to the board of directors. So what we have for this quarter are all of the board approved budget adjustments. So as you can see, I have them listed out here. The chief command SSB vehicle, we memorialized the budget and the revenue for the PG&E IGA projects. Again, I'm using that terminology, but I don't know if what is the official name we want to give those projects. I can be consistent in how I display them in all the reporting. And then the general fund reserve purchase of a fire department equipment, as well as the reserve purchase of the fire engine. So those are all of the board approved third quarter adjustments, and all of those adjustments are included in this report. And then on the last section, I did add, I think that I had committed to providing a standalone document that can track, and I'm going to use project to date. That means that we'll cross fiscal years, the PG&E IGA projects and what has been spent on that. So that initial presentation is in there, and that's where I'd like feedback as well from you all, to say if it meets the needs of what you feel that you should ask for transparency, if that's $12.1 million. Also, the CIP list, the board has adopted that CIP list in July, and this is reflecting all the activities from July 1st to March 31st. And staff recommends finance committee make the recommendation to the board of directors to receive and file the fiscal year 22-23 third quarter budget report. So at this time, I don't know if you want me to go through the report, if anyone needs an update on how.
It might be good to go through it and just show us where, show everybody where the changes appear in the report. Yeah, and just go through it as you would have, as you want to do.
Yeah, I know in the past, and maybe I'll do this in the board, going through what all the titles in the columns to refresh people, but I know all of you are pretty well versed in how this report works. So if you can see, I will draw your attention first to page 14. That's all the changes. And if you look at the top, if you ignore the error of all those fuel station replacements, but you can see the fire engine. I put quarter 3 budget adjustment after it, and I took out the loan that we had budgeted for the fire engine because we decided to pay, or the board approves to pay cash for that. So then if you, and then also the third quarter budget adjustment for the chief's command vehicle. I included, we increased that limit through the budget adjustment. So if you look under the current total budget column up there, you can see now, instead of the original budget of 450,000, I'm down to 79,800, which really just represents the amount of the loan for the command vehicle. And we did get that money, and so next, and we did not get it in the third quarter, so we will see it listed in selected fees next time. And then we're gonna go down to page. This is going to be 16 and 17. And it's the last account on the page of 16, which is the 0161700-01. The entries are made here. If you go, it'll follow down on page 17, where we have like the Zolsphere X series EKG, the jaws of life extraction tool, and then the third quarter budget adjustment, $4,100, because the Zol was a little more expensive than we had anticipated. So those are all memorialized there. And then if you go further down the page under account 016220P-01, you can see the third quarter adjustment for the turnout gear that was approved. So that was the 62,200. And I think there's some rain gear that's in a different account.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it
Oh,
wasn't.
I was gonna ask about, excuse me. That was that's up and a little higher on page 16, I believe. There's something called storm gear and equipment.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was
11,000.
yeah, 11,500.
Here. So fire engine, all the equipment. Okay, and so then that's all of the fire. And then if she may find wastewater.
Can I ask a question?
If anybody, yeah,
Denise,
you could ask questions as she goes, yes.
can I ask a question, please? And I asked you this, the percentage of the fire department general fund is 70%?
Approximately 70% of the property taxes.
The general fund.
Yes.
Thank you.
Get allocated towards the
Yeah.
fire.
Please continue.
Okay, so the other budget adjustments. If you go to page 66.
Wow.
This is where we will finally see all of our PGV projects have been budgeted. If you look, it starts at the 12.6170112.
Yeah.
It says wastewater PCM1 flow flow equalization improvements. And so I have budgeted each of those PCMs for the amount. And then you can see we have had fiscal activity. So for example, that ECM1, we have spent $487,986 on that so far. And so you can go down through that list and see all of the ECMs budgeted and what we've spent on them. And then I would just, I pulled out this part, if you go back to page 62, you can see that on account 12.43980-12, more towards the bottom of the page 62. You can see loan proceeds for the wastewater COP 2020 A bonds, 12.1 million, and if you look under fiscal activity, we've drawn in 1.6 million of that, so that is offsetting those expenditures that you will see under the, now, to better, and this was my, task, was to try and make this a little, single this out in the presentation, and that really could help people, not have to search through this large document to see it. So on page 76 is my attempt to, show this, in a consolidated way. And this is, I really like feedback on this presentation, doesn't meet the needs of being transparent. And this is the, I can pull this out of the system, and I do have to do some manipulation, which is to me is totally fine. And I would expect to present on this in years to come to be project to date, which means it won't just be year-to-date activity, because that's not really showing the whole picture when you look at multi-year construction projects. So I anticipate and maintaining this document in a project to date capacity. So 5 years from now, you'll see all of the transactions that have happened from beginning that, from now until it's done. So we can really see what the balances are and how much is spent.
So question, you're saying that you have to pull this data is I guess what I heard.
Yeah, I pulled this data out of, so this report
It's
is,
not generated naturally.
it is generated,
Okay.
and then I have a little bit of manipulation afterwards, but I think it's, I don't really know of a good project to date reporting method, so I will have to somewhat manipulate it.
Okay.
But I'm okay with that. That is not uncommon.
So
Stuff I've done in the past.
let me ask a question, not only of you, but the rest of the committee. I was just trying to determine whether it would be of value to have a fiscal year statement, not just a project to date, but a fiscal year total that would sum to the project to date, just for visibility.
That's fine.
I don't know, they've, in some respects, it can show the growth of work over time from fiscal year to fiscal year. Don't know if that's something that,
I would.
would be readily apparent.
I think that would be good, and I could just add the column here. I mean, right now,
Okay.
fiscal year in total is the same, just.
Exactly,
We're in year one,
Exactly.
but I 100% will just include,
Oh, okay.
prior
I
activity.
mean, if that's something you
I
can
probably
accomplish,
wouldn't-
that complicated even more.
Yeah,
I do think there probably is added
I'm
value. It may
sorry.
not be something that's visible immediately, but I think over time.
Accumulated.
It be worthwhile.
and then you'll always be able to see that fiscal year activity, in
Yeah,
a bigger report,
Right.
It's just.
Right. yeah, but it just is a one sheet
Yes,
go-to document.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So any other, I guess, Denise, that was pretty much your presentation.
Yes.
So any other questions from the members of the committee?
I'm new to this committee, so I need to catch up on some of this stuff, and I'm not gonna take the committee's time. But in keeping with what you mentioned about keeping track of that big project, it might be better to show that by the utility manager, as he talks about the progress being made. If you could give him
To bring it to the board level and use.
At
this-
Yeah.
At the board.
yeah, because he's gonna be talking about, issues that maybe
Not the
come up, or
goals,
whatever, and how the construction is going and all that kind of thing. And so it may be better in his report on at least a quarterly basis for him to include. It's not gonna take anything more for you because you're already doing it on a quarterly basis, but if he could present it.
So are you talking about in addition to or instead of in here?
And I think it's gonna have to be in addition,
Okay,
but
yeah. we can do that.
he could then explain, why some projects aren't getting done very quickly or whatever,
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay? So that it makes more sense to the general public and to us.
Yep, the general public really doesn't go through these quarterly budget reports and.
No,
No, it's-
I hope
So
not.
yeah, no, no, it's a great idea to take it to that environment.
Mhm.
And it just gives another thought of hold for people viewing the project overall.
yeah,
Yeah,
and if he's giving more current updates, I can run this at any time, I can do it monthly, but however often he's. It doesn't have to only be on a quarterly basis, so I think that is, I'll probably still include it in here as just a
Mhm.
page. On a quarterly basis, but I can definitely work with Ray whenever he is
Yeah.
giving updates to include the financial information with it,
Mhm.
just to add an extra layer of context to his updates.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna add a question or I think an observation or a question to that. I understand that Tyler, kind of the default mode in Tyler is monthly, isn't it?
Yeah,
It basically will produce monthly reports.
Yeah, but
The period, for instance, the period activity is a monthly period, right?
yes, period activity
So-
is monthly.
yeah.
Yes, the current month, so I ran this
Mhm.
through March 31st, so the period activity represents what has happened in March. And the fiscal activity represents what's happened from July through
Right,
March,
right.
yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
so basically going through this third quarter, it seems that most of the departments are over their 100% funds that have been allocated to them. A lot of, there doesn't seem to be that much revenue for the fourth quarter to be spent.
Can you,
That's-
can you
I
show me?
think
the
that's a
schedule?
reversal. So if the. Yeah, it's the percent spent is a decline. Yeah, it's different than what you would normally think of. So it's more of a percent spent
Yes,
Well, the percent
Or the-
remaining,
Or the percent,
versus.
it depends if you're looking
Yeah,
at revenue or
right,
expenditures.
right,
If
right.
you're looking at revenue, the percent remaining
is what,
represents how much more needs to be taken in to
Mhm.
match the budget.
Mhm,
So, I can just take a random page 43.
mhm.
43.
Yeah, so if you look at the water fund, their budget is of $3.392 million. Revenues, you can see under fiscal activity. Oh, wait, sorry, I won't get there. They've taken in 2.1 so far, so that percent remaining is saying they still have 36% of their revenue to receive. So.
So that shows that we're a little bit behind because the months remaining that haven't been accounted for here are really March, April, May, and June,
Correct.
because the billing cycle of every 2
Yeah.
months instead of every month.
So what I would have to
Shows
do is
that.
go look at our prior billing cycles and see where
Yeah.
we're gonna make that up. Are we on track compared to other years?
Yeah,
One
we're
thing-
behind. We're behind a little bit.
And one thing I've noticed also, if you look at the general fund, we have not taken in as much property taxes as we have prior this point in time. Right. So I need to reach out to the county, the tax assessor and I have their contact, just ask
Mhm.
them, is
Yeah.
this anticipated? Or are they just behind on sending us checks? We only have 3 more months left in the
Mhm.
year. So you will see, and that's where it's really hard to say how, this report is very difficult to say, this is how we're gonna end the year. That's not really, because we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. I would have to really look at like a projection, right? Put in the rest of salary and wages, put in any large expenditures we're planning on having, annualized costs and add it in. And so that's not necessarily the intent of this report. The intent is just to say, this is how we're doing so far. And it triggers me to say, okay, what are things I need to look into, like property tax receipt? And, I can sit with Miriam and I think Miriam does look at this, our billing clerk, as far as like, okay, we have this many billing cycles that we're gonna take in and we're gonna be fine. We're gonna meet our target. So you know, it helps me ask those questions, or if you guys see anything, I'm happy, you know, to look into something to make sure we are on track. So that's the revenue, and then if you look at an expense account, so let's just take page 45. And go to 11-6031S-11. I think it's the like fifth account down. You can see the current budget was 74,705. We've spent 11,619. And so that 84% means we have 84% left to spend. So we're under budget.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that percent remaining, you gotta really take it in context of what account you're looking at. And
Yeah.
it, you know, it's not super informative. Because, you know, some things we pay just annually, so they look like we haven't spent any of it, and then it'll all get wiped out. So,
Yeah, it's better, in my opinion, to take those services or whatever it's called, that major budget item at the end, right? Because some are gonna be overspent, some are gonna be underspent, but overall, you wanna know how that particular group is doing, okay? And if you go all the way down to, you know, the end there on that one, it's, you know, there's 35.72% remaining on page 46, right?
Yeah, it says remain.
So, you know, we're still in pretty good shape as far as that goes. You know, there are some that are overspent, some that are underspent. So
correct, yeah, and we do look at them holistically in their, when it's a supply and service account, we do have some latitude to, you know, if we're not spending as much other, some may be over, and, you know, I work with the managers to make sure if I see anything. It's the capital expenditures that need to go before the board for approval and safety changes. So, because, you know, remember, it's just a budget, so the plan, and sometimes just don't go as planned. Much like the storm expenditures that we think of to do this year, some of our storms. We are not getting credit, we do not have the opportunity to go to for any reimbursement for those expenditures. So that's what I'm working on now, is a deep analysis of how much we're spending on for those. And then I'll be sitting with each of the managers and the general manager to, like, anything big, as we all know, Carlos's area, you know, we have to decide what we want to do with that. But that's not going to be just a spend it, and we have to come up with plans to be a little more expensive. So I think we fixed anything that was critical that needed to be fixed right away. And we should be able to support that with our budget. Hopefully, next do that analysis. But
This is a little off the track, I apologize, but it's, I'm assuming that there's application made for some kind of recovery.
we can't
Cost
recover
for-
for the storm. San Luis Obispo County was on included
Yeah.
in the, I don't know what they call it, not like
The-
damage.
FEMA,
The
through
FEMA.
funds.
Emergency, it's not a disaster, didn't have
It wasn't
declaration,
planned
didn't
as
have,
a disaster.
Correct.
didn't have
Not
a disaster declaration for the county. Unlike the storm back 2 years ago.
Over the one in January, which we had very little.
Right.
It's damage from the one in January, that was
Yes,
damage, I mean, San Luis Obispo is in that one, but for March, it looks like we are the ones who got all the damage and nobody else did, because they did not declare that as part of it.
But is there
Sure, that's what-
insurance funds that can be maybe compensated?
I have to ask Haley, as far as I know, no.
How the insurance policies are written or after God, or
Sometimes they
I
get
don't
the old
know.
after
There
God
are
come
high-
in.
I don't know.
high
I don't know.
deductible, was also flood, I mean, certain things that are, you know, it's insurance.
Exempted.
I had a couple questions at getting back to the
Okay,
to the presentation, just so I'm on the, getting back to the presentation of the, the wastewater project expenses. First of all, at the bottom of the category 60 on page 67, and not if this will cause confusion or not, but the capital outlay total, category 60 was 12,429,938, which is of course a little bit more than the loan proceeds. And so I don't know what the difference, the 329,938, what that comes from.
well, if you look down, if you pass on my fuel station computer replacement one.
Okay,
Remember
yeah.
that picture?
Yeah.
We're just gonna pretend that never happened and I can't wait till next year when we won't see that anymore. But you can see the Eastern clarifier replaced drive chain
Yeah.
in there, which I actually am paying for now. Lift station improvements, replacing of a tractor,
Okay,
which I think already happened, replacing of the van and security improvements are all in that 329. Unfortunately, this is why I created a standalone presentation because that 617 account is our capital account. And so what Pam did before she left is she created new accounts to represent the ECM for the greater clarity and transparency on those. Otherwise, they would all just have gone into 617 and it would have been kind of a mess to track.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, so that category 60 capital outlay total will never just equal the 12.1 in this presentation. So that's why I'm bringing it out as a standalone presentation as well. So we can just see the PGA projects.
yeah, so that, now that you explain it, I can see it, because I see it's right on top of page 66 there. However, you're right, it does, it can't confuse people unless there's some kind of notation or alert to them that there is additional capital spending outside of the loan, outside of the bond funds. And another question I had was, where this is. This is down. Oh, this is on this is in the breakout. It's on page 75 or the page 76, I should say. There's a reference to in a note, the 997,816 was funded by Betts Hall development costs.
Yes.
What is that?
So in the original contract with PG&E, when they came out, did the they did a study.
Right.
There were they did a study on multiple areas that were outside of wastewater. So, there was a portion that went to, and I'm trying to find the best way to be true to the numbers, but also reflect that this was an expense that happened. I think in hindsight, and again, this was the first payment that we made, so I'm learning as I go.
Mhm.
But that 1.6 million, I probably shouldn't have drawn that full amount from the bonds. I should have probably left the 97 million because or 97,000.
Mhm.
Because the 97,000 portion was paid by Betts Hall, and I think a portion was paid by water.
Mhm.
So, in essence, I drew down $97,000 too much. So that's sitting there to pay the next invoice, which I have on my desk. So next time I draw down, I won't draw down the full amount.
Yeah.
It'll even help. But I could kind of make it equal, but that 1.6 million you see in the list earlier.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to manipulate that number and not have it match
Yep.
on this. If that makes sense. Although I can understand it's going to cause some confusion and, it caused some confusion for myself. I had to sit there, but 97, and I can list more like exactly where it was paid. Because it is, that's all I think.
Yeah, because I remember personally, I think I was on the R&I committee way back in the day, pre-COVID, when PG&E was talking about energy saving projects, including stuff related to the Betts Hall. So I know it's confusing to sort through that, but I think the goal should be to make it clear, break it out basically as as focusing on the wastewater projects, and then leaving the other stuff to the side and explain it. I think just if we can keep everything kind of sorted out in their categories, it'd be helpful.
Yeah, I'll try and find a way. And there's also, I mean, I was talking to Cheryl about this 160,000 that needs to come out of wastewater's capital accounts and be spread among these projects.
Yeah. Oh, we're just, if you can't, there's a switch.
All you gotta do is hit the switch.
Don't trip on the wire.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. Thank you.
It'll
Dave.
take a while for it to cut out.
And one other suggestion or question I had about how the progress report, as it were, is reported on the wastewater upgrades. I notice right now, currently the full price, the full cost of the project is all in one budget. Like as if the idea is that if you've spent of the 12.1 million we've spent, 20% it's treated as an item that was going to be in the budget, and I assume the rest of it's going to be carried forward. Are we going to be? Is the expectation that? Because this raises the expectation that it'll be spent rather quickly. Is there any thought given to budgeting? The amount may be spread out over a couple of years, so that you get a little more realistic idea of what we'd expected to spend in a given year, and we're spending it instead. See what I'm saying?
I have not been given any cash flow. I've asked for it from PG&E. I don't know what their cash flow is.
Okay.
Their cash flow.
That would be a
projections.
tough one.
Yeah.
So I have asked for that, because that just gives me an indication of how much I should be expecting each month or each year, and I do not have that.
You should ask that.
Yes, I should.
That's one of these things. Yeah.
I think it, so I can ask
Yeah.
again.
Maybe you go directly to SAI, bypass them. Get Ray to ask them.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you they have.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, just a true progress report and a true forecast, basically, would be very good to have. I mean, it's very that is clarity and transparency if we can get that.
And hopefully a lot of the work is gonna happen next fiscal year.
Yeah, I would assume.
A big majority.
Most of it,
gonna
yeah,
happen
most of it,
next
hopefully.
Yeah, and those would be questions for Ray. I mean, I was talking to John Elgin, our wastewater superintendent, and trying to get an understanding of how projects are tracking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not involved in that aspect of it, so it's hard for me to get information.
Right.
But I can try and see if I can get more information as far as, I mean, I did want to show the 12.1 million, because I know that is the number that people will find
People
too.
focus on it. Yeah.
And they will focus on it. So, I could, I guess, maybe add another column that is like projected yearly expenditures to try and maybe section it out a little more, but I do like times that 12.1 just because it was a very public number.
Yeah.
That I think people will time it to.
Let me pose a question to the committee. Does the committee want to ask for any changes in presentation when this quarterly report goes to the board?
I had a question.
Question for Cheryl. Yeah.
For the general fund,
Mhm.
is it possible to do that pie chart?
About the revenue.
Yes. A pie chart showing,
The
What is-
allocation of property taxes.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
won't that be part of the preliminary budget? In the budget document, I mean, we do a pie chart.
That's what Cheryl was saying.
Yeah,
I
in the
haven't
preliminary
seen it,
budget.
So
She
when I
has
look through the budget
Yeah.
and see if it's there,
Mhm.
it definitely hasn't been included in quarterly reports before.
Yeah.
But this is my first time doing the budget, so I can look in there and see. I mean, a pie chart of property tax allocation you know, speaking of, and it's kind of a little off topic, but you know, what we want to see in my finance manager's report, and changing that, you know, maybe that's something I can put in there on a more consistent basis, or at least yearly, and just have it in there for because it doesn't change. It's a decision
Yeah.
at this point. I mean, that's what we're kind of working on in the committee I'm on for budget committee or budget policy, but let me look at and see where that paper is, and then
Okay,
I will include it, obviously, where it's been included in the past, but we can discuss like maybe including it elsewhere too, if you think that's beneficial.
the reason I bring it up, Denise, is if you let me
Please,
explain.
yeah, please.
Last week on NCAC, there was a letter that was going to be presented from the fire department regarding additional funds. And my question, it's not going to happen as written, but if people were aware of what the department receives, the percentage of the general fund, people are not. And that was that's what triggered my thought process here.
Yeah, let me look, like you said, that it's been done before and that it's.
Okay,
you know, if
thank
I
you.
haven't seen it, so I will find it, and it would be an easy presentation, because like I said, it's a static number, it's not something that fluctuates. And I mean, I think it's.
Okay, thank you.
0.2% or something.
It doesn't change from quarter to quarter.
No.
It's in an annual budget, it stays that way.
It's in the budget policy, how much
You know,
each.
Yeah, it's a form that's in the budget, so you wouldn't
Which-
need to do it quarterly.
Yeah.
Any other suggestions or changes or anything that the committee would want to see in the presentation? Ms. Kuzma, yes.
I wonder whether it would be easier to know whether we would like changes to this report as we go forward. It's tough to know now because it's the first one. It's tough for me to know now.
Right.
And I mean, I would just like to, sorry, you go first, but I would like to say these reports are intended, this is how I view it. And I'm new, and our general manager is new, but this is how I envision these reports and going forward is they are here to serve the public, to help them get the information they need. And obviously I have the expertise to try and get you that information in a cohesive and like understandable way. But I'm more than happy to have like these be living doc, you know, I mean, of course I can't take everyone's comments and do anything. Otherwise we'll have a hodgepodge of just information. But you know, I'm okay with people making suggestions and things that would make things even clearer for them. Because the whole intent is for everyone out there to understand what, you know, what this means in an understandable way, which all of you guys spend a lot of time analyzing these, but a lot of people don't, or aren't, you know, they're not familiar with it. Their expertise is somewhere else.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, thank you. Cheryl, you had
I do, because what's going to happen next is there's going to be a possibility of that rate increase coming up on the agenda for next quarter, for not this quarter, but there's going to be talk about a rate increase, and people need to understand.
Rates for water.
Yeah,
water and wastewater.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's,
But
you know,
not-
they had a 5-year. So people need to understand the capital improvement projects. They need to understand why, if there is a rate increase, where the funds are going to be allocated, what has been allocated. And the more we are transparent, the easier it will be not to have any conflicts or negative feedback. That's my thought
No, that's
pattern.
a very important point. And I think I have to say, you know, just to round this off, because what Ms. Fritz was saying is true about, you know, not listening to our suggestions and incorporating them into, you know, hopefully into future reports. This report, of course, has to go directly to the board, board of directors. And we don't want to have too much time spent altering it, obviously.
Mhm.
Or, because I think the way it is now is, it is a, I think it's very, to me, there's clarity. Slightly more can be done, I think, in future reports to, define show the categories and show things a little more, with a little more definition, so people can recognize them in the report. But I like the way the idea of having the IGA reports, IGA projects, separate report. And I think, you're making a good start here towards, the way this will ultimately be. So I would entertain a motion, and unless somebody has a change that they think needs to be made this time around, I'd entertain a motion to essentially recommend that this report be forwarded to the board of directors for their consideration.
I have a question.
Mr. Steidl, yes, sure.
We started asking for some feedback about what's the most consistent way to refer to
Okay,
the whole IG, and that could be as a recommendation, could be part of the motion, and so I just, or we can take it separately, but.
well, I mean, you could try it as part of the motion. Now, Dave, get this down carefully because you're the secretary now. Because I used IGA. I mean, it was, but it's do we have public comment? We actually have public. We can actually have public. We were in the question period, so yeah, I'll open this to public comment. And also public comment, anybody wanting to comment online. I see no hands up, so
Okay.
Mr. Howell, do you have any
This
comments?
is the way we used to refer to what you're referring to the IGA projects, is actually SST. IGA refers to investment grade audit that was done in establishing. So they are IGA projects because they are projects called out in the IGA, but the program itself and this partnership that we have with PG&E is a SST, it's called SST, which is.
I think Sustainable Solutions Turnkey.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's John Elchin referred to it
Yeah.
as yesterday at the meeting, and I
Yeah.
haven't heard that term before. And you can see on here, I just put wastewater COP 2022A bonds. I don't know, and so I'd like to change that with whatever we just heard here today, because I don't think we're being very consistent. Yeah.
So that could, Mr. McElhenney.
May I?
Yes, me.
As I wrap my head around this, and I probably align with maybe the general public in their terms of trying to understand this in the current role, being new, right? I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, maybe like a citizen would look at it and not understand some of the things that are within the document. And some of the things I was thinking about, and that I've worked with Mrs. Fritz on is there a way to put a key within the document that would explain acronyms or some of the things that we're talking about? So like you would on a map, you have a key or a legend, so to speak, in the bottom left-hand corner that maybe would help better understand exactly what these are. So as we parse it out into the SST project, when we're trying to figure out, well, where was this 1.6 million spent, and we're saying ECM or whatever it may be, would a legend help? Would a key help? To then, when we talk about the transparency piece and for the public to understand exactly what we're doing in that, would a key or a legend help? And maybe I'm off on that
Well,
piece.
there are a lot of acronyms specifically in this project that are a little hard to, and when we had to kind of search our brains to get SST. SST, and IGA means investment grade audit, and
then COP was an evolution of the whole.
COP is that's the financing. That's the project itself. And then there's ECM, which is
Represents each project.
Yeah, engineering.
Energy conservation measure.
so it is.
Thank you.
If not to have a legend in the report on this, however, whatever summary is given, these things should be spelled out initially, and then maybe in parentheses have the acronym. But that should be explained. I mean, it should be some way of explaining it to the public, because it is. I mean, it's hard for us to even remember what some of these things mean.
Well, most people would not have paper. They would have their computers.
Yeah. Well, computers, you can do the same.
Yeah.
If you have
That's
a
what I'm saying. So they
this would be a
this is
report.
Easier for me to read.
This would be a report, so the report would have a little prefatory a little, text presenting it that could just say what these things are, I think, to keep it simple.
Or even on that summary report, I could. put a
Oh, the summary
legend
report, yeah, summary report,
I could put a little legend on there.
something people can refer to somewhere, yeah, because that's a good idea. I mean, I think it's something, these are particularly difficult acronyms to remember where they come from. So, I don't know, I don't know if this is in the form of a, could be included in the motion or what, but,
Yeah, I think including include a key or legend as a part of the report should be in the recommendation. I think that's
Yeah.
good.
Acronym
You-
legend.
You had
acronym
something?
Legend, well, it was just whether, what is the reference that we would suggest be the sole reference for all of the turnkey program, all of the ECMs, that were satisfied by the COP. So is it SST?
Should be.
SST.
I think that's what
Yeah.
The contract
That's the higher.
PG&E.
Yeah, I
is.
agree.
So I could change, I could make that in this report and point it out, and then the discussion then would go, be at the board level where they could,
Yeah.
say, yeah, we agree.
Yeah.
Or,
But we can incorporate
Right.
that as part of the motion that we have recommendation that the
Yes,
That
the
the,
wastewater treatment
which I could point out. in the
projects be
recommendation.
referred to as SST.
as sustainable solution turnkey, parentheses SST, not supersonic transport,
yeah,
not
and
the Concorde.
I would still like to make part of the motion that the R and I committee look at revision of the CIP,
Is that
Okay.
so
separate
that it would
motion?
make more sense.
Is that a
I'm sorry,
separate
what
motion?
Oh,
Is that
you want to make it
Part of
separate-
the motion,
Part
as
of
part
it?
of the motion? This would just be,
that they direct the R and I committee to at least look at the CIP presentation so that it makes more sense.
Are you talking about? Wait.
this is the one on page.
The CIP,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, so-
the actual
Because
CIP.
I was gonna add that, I really would like to revise this for next year, in my mind, this does not really help. Us, because this, this is current costs, and a lot of these projects are carrying forward, but I know there's a lot of history behind this document, or that's how it was explained to me. And that we used to have project to date on there, and then it was decided to take it off, and so, I mean, a lot of you have probably been involved in that conversation, and so I would like to rely
Yeah.
on your historical knowledge to, it explains to me that there's a lot of history behind it. But
well,
to
yeah,
me, this doesn't necessarily help, and I also think I do have a thing on the bottom of everything that's been completed.
Mhm.
And of course, I can't keep it on there forever and ever, but I do think that it's beneficial to me to show that things actually do come off this list. And that's in context of speaking to, I think Cheryl brought up with any revenue, rate increases that may be asked for, to show like that we are actually doing these projects.
Mhm.
right, yeah, the money is being spent properly.
So, yeah, I would suggest to make it simple, a motion to recommend that this report be received and filed by the board of directors with two changes. One is three changes, well,
Or three considerations.
three considerations. One is to adopt the term sustainable turnkey solution project SS/SS or parentheses SST for the projects funded by the COP, by the bond issue.
CIP.
COP,
No, the
CIP.
COP, the funded, COP funded projects.
certificates of participation.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
the bond issue. Yeah,
Oh, God.
that's one.
Bondage.
And David, you came up with to
Yeah, well, to include a
to-
key or legend as
well,
part
to
of the
include a
report.
key legend to explain the
Acronyms.
acronyms related to these projects.
Right,
And three,
and to ask the R and I committee to revise the CIP.
or to review, for the board to ask the R&I committee to review and if necessary, revise the CIP list.
Right,
That would be the
Got it.
motion. Any
Revise
other
the
comment?
formatting.
Hold on, Tom.
yes,
So bond,
Discussion.
oh, I'm
It hasn't been-
sorry.
Is there a second first
Oh,
massive motion?
Yeah.
Okay, moved, I think it was moved by committee member Pearson, seconded by Vice Chair Stidel, that this motion, that the foregoing be voted on or be done. Now, discussion,
I
Ms.
have
McDowell.
a question.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hell with that look. The bond,
Mhm.
okay, we're talking about the
That's
bond,
the 12.1 million.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, I use the term bond. It's loose,
Okay,
it's
thank you.
technically a,
No problem.
okay.
Yeah, no, I know there are a lot of, terms.
technically it's.
Thank you,
it's-
Cindy.
it works like a bond. It's marketed like a bond. It's paid for like a bond, has interest. It's technically an installment sale contract, which is-
Okay,
is a different kind, but
Okay,
it's,
because when
but
you
it-
said bond, I thought of Stewart Street tank.
no, no.
I thought of,
It's the,
that's, my mind went,
it's, yeah, it's a type of municipal
Okay.
security that we issue
okay,
to
thank
get the
you,
money.
thank you, gosh.
Okay,
Any further discussion?
voting,
Any, well, so I'll do a roll call actually on this one.
Okay.
Because, yeah, Vice President Stidel,
Uh,
actually, committee member Person,
aye.
Vice President Stidel,
I,
member Chrisman,
Aye.
committee member McDowell.
Aye.
And the motion passes 4-0,
One absent.
one absent. Thank you. Yes.
Questions? So with asking the R&I to review the IP list, so they could review it and then bring it back to the finance, I mean, does
They
the
really-
finance committee get to weigh in on how that?
I think that's, the board would control that process, but it would be normally, yeah, I mean, the board would refer it first to the R&I committee, then it could go back and go through it's up to the board how that works, but that would be the process that I would prefer, so.
And so reporting from the site, so this recommendation, Vice President Gray will come from you at the board meeting, or do I relay this committee's recommendation when I'm presenting? to
I
the
think
board?
you relay the recommendation,
Okay,
right,
so it's in your, and
then you report.
it's in your report, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, and I can include these details in my report.
yes,
just so
yes,
that the finance-
exactly,
And
exactly.
usually I can just say finance committee approved, but I'll add it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sorry, I just.
That's good. I think we
Yeah, and it isn't so much that we approved, is that we moved it forward, we're recommending.
Recommending
the
the-
board to
yeah.
accept the.
that they receive and file, which that's what they
Right.
do too, so recommending receive and file, I think that's how it was worded. So,
Okay, one
Mr. Pearson,
thing now that we're done with vote and everything. Since we have a new general manager here, I really think that a great big sign out in front of the wastewater treatment plant that says $12.1 million is being spent to renovate, and here's the list of projects and that kind of thing would be really good. You know, the way they
Oh,
do
light
that.
it up, Dave. Light it up.
Why not? I mean, we're spending your money. Something like your rate fees are going to major improvements to this wastewater treatment plant. $12.1 million, whatever it says, but you gotta have something that tells people.
Acknowledge it.
and that can be
that
done,
We're spending.
it doesn't need, it doesn't take board action, it's just something it's.
Yeah, that,
It's like your tax dollars at work on the highway.
Light it up,
It's like health
illuminate
brands.
it, so
Yeah.
Claudia could have a
Your rate,
meltdown.
because we raise rates, and we continue to raise rates for this project, because that's what the bond issue is based on. It's based on the rate increase that
Oh,
we put
God,
through.
help me.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, David, that's
Good
a
idea.
great idea.
sign won't cost.
suggestion duly noted.
Is it-
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Would a combination of some of our website, I'm not sure how much traffic our website gets, but some type of traffic on the website. You know, there's banners, there's different things that you can do within the website to do that as well. And then would there need to be discussion in terms of how it would look in terms of Cambria? Beautiful.
Let John and Haley work on it, and figure it
Yeah,
out.
yeah. And the website could have a progress report, could have more like what we've done so far, what we're doing in future. It could be more detail, obviously, than just a sign. Because you do have the carousel with all the little features up there, and that can be put part of that. But that's something again for the people who do the website for Haley and Ray, I guess.
I think maybe there's a lot of the website.
Yeah.
She's. This army.
Yeah. Moving on to regular business, we had a little bit of a, things are sort of in flux as to how these reports are going to be given, because we had been talking, I think, Vice President Stidel and Ms. Fritz and I were talking about whether to put written updates and how to present them in this agenda. And I don't think we have any actual written updates from the subcommittees. But I do think there are oral, this is items B and C.
Well, you do have one.
Actually, yeah,
There's one at the end.
Let me see here.
right, there's one for
The reserve policy,
Well, there's a, okay.
Yeah,
let me-
last page.
yeah,
Oh,
so,
so,
just
oh, you said, yeah, okay.
not to jump the gun, but there are actually two typos in.
Okay, so you
And actually, I
you have
corrected them, it's
yours.
just that it was too late in this, so.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Because,
shall I address them now?
well, actually, it's 3C. Let's do
Okay,
three,
So
let's
this
do
is page 89,
89. Let's do 3B first because
Okay.
in order, see if in order.
all right.
And that was the one that doesn't have a written report. And I think this committee was the subcommittee on budget policy review, which is, I think,
Right.
Mr. Pearson's
So
committee.
we met and we reviewed and discussed and we really don't have anything to report this time to the committee as a whole. We're still working on different things. One of the areas that we're looking at was the overhead allocation. And there were 4 criteria and we were thinking about going to 3 criteria. But at the end of our meeting, we were down to 2 criteria, which we really think is going to be the one we bring back to you because it's simple, straightforward, easy to understand, etc. And as far as income allocation and property tax, we talked about that, but we really haven't come to any finalized conclusion either. So we're going to continue to meet and bring something back to you probably in July. Denise would be a good target for us to finally bring something back. I'm thinking about your calendar.
Because I think as I'm going through the budget process, I'm gonna try and run some alternate scenarios with the things that we're talking about or the subcommittee as far as overhead out, because we do have to balance it with our operations, right? We can't just change it so that drastically that we leave the department
Right.
underfunded or over, that sort of thing. So I was gonna try and kind of put to the test some of the methodologies that have been brought forward. So we can know if it even works in real life, right, in our current structure. And so, yes, I mean, I have to have the budget ready by next month.
Mhm.
So, bring here. So I would, I'll probably would like to call another meeting of the subcommittee here relatively soon. So I can, get some more models to try and, run scenarios as I'm getting there to prepare. So I think July is good. And you'll just have to have a little patience with me because I'm not entirely sure what
Yeah,
a year end looks like here.
Yeah.
So, I don't have
Yeah,
any
we're-
promises I can't keep, but I'm not really sure. So.
it's a flexible date.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
just saying that would
Be the
be
end of
the
the
target.
quarter.
And I think in the end, and I think with both of these committees, we've talked about going before the board in November with an updated policy
Mhm.
for the
Mhm.
following year.
Right.
And I think that is a good commitment
Target.
and that we can do, and we'd like to bring it before the board as it is seated now, for
Mhm.
December. And so, that's kind of like the end date. And so what happens now and then is a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate your flexibility, but we would like to have, so I would assume then we would want draft policies before you guys in October. If we want to bring it, so we can make changes.
Yeah, the very
before the
latest.
committee Meeting in October, so then we can make adjustments,
Right.
have conversations to bring before the board in, the second meeting in November.
Okay,
So like July isn't really even that hard a deadline then, is it?
Right.
That's-
It's
we have to-
October.
October, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. That sounds fine to me.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I mean, any other comments and questions for the committee? Which of course is, I think Amy is also on the committee. Is Wyatt. There'll be no action taken on this, just a special report. So I can move on to Steve, for which we do have a written report. And you might notice on the back of the agenda that you picked up, some of you had a long list of timesheet staff
pages of it.
checklists,
Sorry, guys.
which was, that's not part of our agenda. That's got stuck on there. Yeah, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's nothing we have to worry about.
Okay, it should have been pulled.
I think this looks to be a report will come from Vice Chair Seidel, right? Please
So
proceed.
let me give you the corrections first. The significant one actually is
Page 89. by the way.
this page 89. It's the second, the number 2 in parens where it says refund policy. Obviously, that's supposed to read reserve policy. So the other one is just the addition of a letter, and that is if you drop down to the next to last bullet to the number 2, the second sentence there, independently within the general fund. I suggest adding a D there, and then
Oh, come on.
Come on.
not to, not to take everything away. That is it for that. I think that the report itself is probably pretty self-explanatory. It ends up there are 2 policies,
Mhm.
one that was adopted in 2016, and the other that was initially approved in August of 2019 with the proviso that it be reviewed every 2 years. So we are currently doing that. It was not revised, but looked at for potential revision. And that was done with the action, I think, of just a change in acronym reference or something to it. It's very, very minimal. But we're currently going to be taking a look at the 2 policies against one another, because there are similarities in the kinds of things that they cover, but they also cover 2 different aspects of what reserves are in it, which is interesting. They obviously were satisfying 2 different intents. So we're going to be looking at that, and also be looking at the terminology that's used, because there's some confusion in that there are acronyms that are used by Gadsby, which talk to reserves and the definitions of categories of reserves, versus how we internally may use references to reserves and the more simplistic types of reserves that we actually deal with. So we're going to have conversations about that and probably have some recommendations. And the definition and management of unassigned and assigned. Because they exist independently within the general fund and the enterprise funds. And you may want to consider the difference in the methods of reserve application within the enterprise funds versus general funds. So that's a conversation we'll have. And then once we're finished with that, we'll go ahead and get some determinations on the designations of the management. And we'll also be reviewing the policy 2150 methods and the timing for the reserve levels monitoring. So that's what we have ahead of us in the review we're going to take a look at within the ad hoc. And we are operating on the timeline basically that we just discussed. By recognition that there are other focus points that Ms. Fritz has, and that this wouldn't apply until we were into not this cycle, the 24, 25, but potentially the application of restrictions on the
Yeah.
25, 26, just in the budget.
Right.
So I do have one question. You said there are 5 defined classes of reserves in,
Gatsby.
yeah. So can you, at the next, at your next report,
Okay.
could you
Define
delineate
the,
those?
yeah.
Kind
I
of
can
give
do
us an
that.
idea as to what those are?
Yeah.
I was gonna look at Gatsby and then I said,
No.
I looked at that before
I'm not gonna do
and I
that.
don't understand half of what they say.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the,
I didn't.
yeah. That's,
so the goal here obviously is to come up with a unified, integrated, single reserve policy that kind of incorporates, everything we have now and then get rid of duplication.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about, and Dave didn't bring up, was maybe a subcommittee for Friends. To talk about our relationship with the Friends for the Ranch.
Oh,
Oh, you
we're
are?
gonna be,
Oh,
we're gonna be
okay.
talking about that.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
that's fine.
It's very, it's actually very relevant. Anyway, I'll open this to public comment, and also, including the general manager. Any question, if there are no further questions of Ms. Tydell, any public comment on the item? All eyes are on you. And I don't see anyone raising their hands on Zoom. Well, I can close off this topic by saying thank you for the report. And I think looks like both of these two subcommittees are going to be
are active.
They're active, and they essentially have a deadline of October.
Yep.
To get it all done. And we'll continue to report on your progress, and we might have a different system, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, where we have actually a little bit of a written grid where you can fill in just, very briefly what the committee might be doing rather than having to do a full-fledged report every meeting. So go ahead and keep track of your work that way. Good, thank you. One more item, and this is new. This was a topic that was proposed by Dave Pearson. And I, as you might remember from the Thursday meeting of the board, I proposed it as a future agenda item and as a referral back to this committee. So that the committee, CCSD board has referred this to formally. It's discussion of potential general fund revenue enhancement, and of course with the possible ad hoc subcommittee appointment. Maybe could I just ask Dave to sort of give a précis of what he was thinking and.
So the finance committee previously did an extensive study on where revenue shortfalls were. And they, even came up with some recommendations about possible places to find more revenues for the general fund. And that's where it was left. And we still have this gap where we continue to spend money on the ranch. We continue to have needs on the Vets Hall, for instance, that we are unable to fund. And the fire chief is coming up with a new budget that he feels is more appropriate for real fire prevention in our community, which I think is something that the community as a whole is in favor of. So I think that we need to really get a committee together that really looks at what are the possible solutions to that and come back to this committee and say, okay, these are things that we could do to raise more revenue, and these are the reasons why this one will or will not work, or this one, has good potential or whatever, so that we can then discuss it here and send a final recommendation to the board so that we can start trying to figure out exactly how we're gonna generate the revenue that we really need to sustain the needs of the general fund. So that's what I would really like to do, is just really get to the meat of this thing and come up with some solid recommendations to the board as to what we need to do.
Yeah. Now, to follow up on Ms. McDowell's question about the Friends of Fiscal and Ranch Reserve,
Yeah, so
how do they?
so there were a number of things that the former finance committee or the finance committee previously came up with. One of them was to go to the FFRP and ask them if they could take over more of the ranch maintenance, or would it be more desirable to have a separate 501(c) for ranch maintenance? Because that's one of the areas that has taken up a lot of the general fund revenue over the past 10, 12 years, and will continue to do so because of the maintenance needs that are going to be ongoing. I mean, the storm that went through, Carlos said, knocked down over 100 trees that really need to be cleaned up. That's a lot of money. The homeless situation is focused a lot on the ranch, and that's costing a lot of money to clean up, move, clean up, move, clean up, move those people, right? Until we get a more permanent solution for that. The other is they've got boardwalks that at some point in time are either going to need major maintenance or replacement. That is not budgeted by us or them. So I think that's one of the areas. Another area is the fire department has a current assessment, parcel assessment. Perhaps that should be enhanced. I remember back in 2016, I believe it went on to the ballot. It was narrowly defeated. Maybe that's an opportunity for somewhere to go. And another one that I think is something that we should look at is incorporation. That is both an opportunity and a challenge, but it's something that should be looked at as one of the possibilities for getting revenue, because we would then have the possibility of revenue from head tax, which gets the visitors to our community to pay for some of the things that we do, and also a sales tax addition could be done to improve our revenue. So that's a study that was done apparently
Cal Poly,
back in 2005 or something
yeah,
like
John
that.
Colgan. John Colgan did it.
There have been a couple of studies actually.
And I understand that LAFCO could assist us with that. So
Yeah.
going to LAFCO or going to Cal Poly again to get somebody to look at this. You may even be able to go to Cal Poly and get an intern to actually, help us with the whole scenario of which one we should choose and how to do that kind of thing. So I think it's something that needs to get done and done more quickly than dragging our feet and waiting.
Yeah, that's a very, very good summary of the possible options. Any questions at this point? from the committee?
I think not so much questions as an observation. I think in the construct of that, Dave, I think it's helpful also to understand what elements cost the district money that are actually their responsibility versus those that we've kind of taken on.
Mhm.
And I think that when you get down to the decision making, the decisions have to be addressing those things that are specifically the responsibility of the district.
Mhm.
And if there are things that aren't the responsibility of the district, that we've taken on some kind of financial burden, then we need to assess how that can be contained or potentially discontinued.
Yeah, I think it's a good point about term revenue enhancement isn't just about bringing in more revenue from kind of the outside in.
Mhm.
It's also looking at where we are spending money on things that other entities could be spending money on, which is good. Yeah, that's the
Mhm.
FFRP question. And that's a form of enhancement too, because if we were spending a couple $100,000 less on maintaining the ranch, it would be, the effect
It
would be
money
like
for
a,
the fire department.
yeah, it would be a
or
couple $100,000
money to do the vets hall
without having to go
repairs
get a
or
tax
the-
increase for
yeah.
it. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I think broadly speaking, you should take a look at savings, or not savings in our operations, but getting other entities to pay certain amounts.
Determining where we should be limiting ourselves and
two, yeah.
where we should be targeting that
Yeah,
location.
we do.
Do
We
you
do
have
some of the,
suggestions, Cindy, in
Mhm.
your mind? Do you have suggestions?
Oh, you mean,
Yeah,
to give a suggestion, I thought you saying
No.
you had a suggestion.
no, do you have
well,
off the top of,
Well, no, I don't have a solution or a suggestion. I have thoughts.
Okay.
But I think that's probably the kind of thing that needs to be looked at within a committee environment where you're going out and gathering data
Well,
rather than just my
right, you've
opining
sat,
about something.
you've been so involved in, sitting on boards and everything, and I think you'd be a great person, Cindy.
well,
Well,
we'll see, we'll see
I
what, who
mean,
wants to
you're
volunteer
so,
first.
yeah,
It's a question I have, actually. Again, I want to ask, I want to allow, call for public comment. If the questions are over, I want to allow for public comment on this, because I had a couple of comments too. Don't have anybody on in Zoom world. Don and Matt, either of you have any comment at this point?
I have a lot to add to the discussion. I mean, these are all totally important issues.
Yeah.
The only thought that occurred to me though is in terms of the fire department, and I think ultimately probably will be necessary to go back to the community and ask for an addition, to go through the
Assessment.
whole process. The only suggestion I would make regarding that is if the decision is made to go forward, try to time it so that the voting takes place during the dry season.
No, I mean.
Generally does.
Right.
That's when to
Well,
do it,
yeah,
because otherwise, people say it's raining. It's not.
Well, we missed our opportunity when the Paradise Fire.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
It would have been perfect to have it on the ballot the next month.
And we also, of course, this question is what is it for? Is it for simply for staffing, which was the other one, is for staffing, or is it for prevention? Is it for a wildfire prevention a wildfire prevention and defensible space program in addition, even an evacuation program? So you'd have to figure out what it's for, what people will be getting. I think this is one of those things where topics where obviously there's no public comment today, but almost, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
please.
So thank you. So a couple of things that I'm thinking about, and as I've been diving into some of the topics of today, just to sound familiar. I know the chief has done a really good job analyzing his budget and how it's changed over the last 15, 16 years in terms of the allocation from general fund, where the fire department used to get 80%, even 2% at one point. I could be wrong, and I'll have spreads on that.
That's about
How it's been shifted a little bit into helping with FNR and maintenance of fiscal branch. So there's not only that component to it, where some of that has been done, shifted to FNR to maintain fiscal branch. There's the outside consequences of that diversion of time, such as contracting out for other duties within the community. And remind me, we're looking at reviewing contracts in excess of $50,000 for just maintenance of bathrooms and cleaning up of our downtown area. I mean, that's also a pot of money that, maybe if we weren't as committed to fiscal branch in terms of some of that maintenance, there's ancillary costs that could be recouped because we're not contracting out for certain services that typically would fall under FNR's purview. So there's a broad picture here. So I think this subcommittee and ad hoc committee that can really pick this apart and take a look and analyze it, see where we are spending some of these monies at the fiscal branch, which I know is a very beautiful area and the citizens are very passionate about it. But I think it's a very good idea because there's a lot of different things that we're doing. And so when we talk about assessments, for the fire department, maybe there's monies before we go to assessment that can be recouped.
Of course, assessments are taxes.
Right,
It's a polite word for
Right.
partial.
Right,
county.
exactly.
right.
But
And which
yeah,
not popular.
yeah. But the,
I think the other resource that we never consider is the tourist board.
Mhm.
I mean, the idea of, Cambria is a mecca for tourists for the county, and there is a tourism board who has money.
they get 1 cent, they get a 1 cent bed tax, which is something like, I don't know, it's like 400,000 a year maybe at this point. It's a lot.
That's just for Cambria.
That's just, that's just to be spent here
Mhm.
on promoting tourism to Cambria. Well,
But we don't get much of it.
But of course-
Number one,
one of the biggest tourist draws in Cambria is, of course, the ranch.
exactly.
Yeah, thought has occurred to me.
So
Uh,
the idea of
I-
being able to have that board to
Yeah.
help support the infrastructure for the tourists, like bathroom cleanups.
Yeah. the bathroom cleanup thing, of course, that's one of those topics. Cheryl was asking you, Cindy, if you had any, you thought of anything, but that is one thing I've thought of with county. With the CCSD having taken on something that's really not central, because those are county restrooms. They're so owned by the county. We have an agreement going way back. This is something I think the former finance committee went into a little bit, going way back, that we maintain them.
Yeah.
But they're not our property. And it is money. So I could go on. Before we get off the topics of, there's too much discussion, preliminary, which too much discussion of what the ad hoc subcommittee should be discussing. I want to ask if anybody wants to volunteer, maybe it's 2 people for an ad hoc committee to go forward with this. I mean, David obviously is,
Yeah.
David and Cindy.
You
Okay.
too would be wonderful.
And actually, if you have a third member, you can have a third member because of our unique structure here. But two of you, I mean, if you want to just start with that, I think this is one of the things where the ad hoc committee can actually, and without problem, with having, Brown Act problem stuff, they can meet with various people in the public, bring them into the mix to have, share ideas with them informally. You don't have to have, standard meetings like this. You can just talk to people and get input. Karen.
I recently heard that Mel McCulloch, who you all know,
Yes.
is the president of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, is involved in some kind of committee to raise funds for the Vets Hall. I might have that terminology not
No,
exactly.
you're right.
correct,
You're
But keep him in mind and.
yeah. Mel would be good.
Dovetail.
Mel and people connected to the tourism board. It's also there's a little bit of public education involved here too, as you come out with the report, because the revenue picture in Cambria is complicated and a lot of people do not understand where the money comes from for particular things.
Mhm.
Because the idea of a general fund, which comes from property taxes and parcel taxes essentially, and paying for certain things like the ranch and fire, and then the water and sewer rates paying for other things. And of course, having the administrative allocation, which takes some money out of
Mhm.
those rates and send them to the general fund. I don't think most people really get that.
No, even
It's
though
complicated.
it's explained several times
Yeah.
a year.
Yes,
It's explained all the time, but
yes.
this process of talking about revenue and getting some input from the public may help educate people too.
Maybe we
Yeah.
can put a blur out there. A public relation piece out there.
Yeah, we've tried.
I think-
all-
I think-
Ask for
I'm
suggestions.
thinking this
Actually, I think
process,
we probably do
I
better
would
off
say-
just putting something out on next door.
I say
And
this-
shielding some of the social media.
I'd say this process of looking for enhanced revenue, to the extent that you get the public involved for their input, also has an educational value. That's what I was saying. 'Cause I don't think we've done pretty much all we can with notices and explanations and stuff. But it's really good for people to understand that what the limitations are on the general fund revenue. And I don't think they always get that.
I don't think people care, to be
Well,
honest with you.
well, most
Tom.
people,
Big,
well, I mean, we're not, we don't have a big crowd
If they only care if it's affecting their wallet.
well,
And
this is where.
that's the bottom line, if it affects their wallet, then they have a voice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know how easy it'd be to get those Cal Poly studies for incorporation?
Oh, well, there's a process for that, and that's something that's,
Is that a,
Senior study projects and all.
and you also have, you go to, LAFCO, does, LAFCO is, they're the ones who make all the decisions. Local Agency Formation Commission.
Mhm.
I
really?
gotta spell things out. Yeah, they're the ones who make the decision, as to whether, as to how it'll be shaped, how it'll be, how the new city would be crafted, what its boundaries would be, what its sphere of influence would be. They want to make the decision. They do also do studies, either commission studies or they'll do studies of revenue and, viability of the incorporated city. So yeah, you would, this subcommittee work with LAFCO.
LAFCO defines how a special district.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said all the,
We didn't just, we weren't created out of thin air. I mean, the whole structure of what any CSD is defined by
they're in
LAFCO.
charge of that process. So,
And they're supposed to review us every 10 years, I think.
Mhm.
We're
A year
way
for
overdue.
review?
anyway,
Maybe we can get some.
barring any further comment or discussion on this, I don't want to get too far into the weeds of discussion at this point. I will, as chair, hereby appointing a ad hoc subcommittee consisting of David Pearson and Cindy Stidell to, as we phrase it, to investigate potential general fund revenue enhancement and report back in due course. I mean, this is another one you'll get, you should get 6 months on this, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think it
Well,
it's
easily.
easily, because this is a big thing. And I think,
It is.
hopefully getting as much public input as you can from people who are knowledgeable. Tourism board too. Same. So if no objection to that, I think we declare the committee formed.
Great.
Good. We just have future agenda items now. Item 4. Are there any? I mean, these future agenda items session, part of our agenda has been pretty productive, actually. Up till now, because this came out of future agenda items. So if anybody has an idea,
Well, the
want another subcommittee?
next meeting is going to be the new budget.
Right.
So,
And that's going to be major. That's going to be our major focus. It's gonna
yeah,
take our time.
that's going to take up
Yeah.
90% of the agenda.
Mhm.
In fact, I would say that our 3 committees now shouldn't even,
Yeah, the
Have
status
reports.
wouldn't even be required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, we don't
I
even
agree.
need to have those report back. We really need to look at the budget. That's going to have to be our
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah, it's a good caution in future agenda items to remember that you don't want to overburden staff too.
Mhm.
With, because staff, I think Denise generally has meetings with the ad hoc committees. So far, kind of once a month, but that might slow down a little bit, but we need, draw on the expertise of staff for these committees to work. So,
Well, I don't
good to bear in
think that
mind.
most people recognize how shallow the personnel depth
Yeah.
is in the district somehow, because of the amount of rates and things, they don't necessarily recognize that it's something that's for assets and structure, not for personnel labor, except when people have to run the plants. But,
Mhm.
from a general fund perspective, administration it's not that deep.
Not right now. We are actively looking, and I definitely, right now it's shallow because we have no choice. We're just down people. There's 2 people working in finance right now, and luckily I have that person, Miriam, our billing clerk, has really stepped up and helped me as much as she possibly can. But I still am actively looking at ways to restructure the admin department to create efficiencies and save money and all of those things too. And I think that we can't do it. But yes, right now it's just, we're trying to get through.
Try to keep your head above water.
And I've been doing it, but budget cycle's coming up, you're in closed stuff. So, there's only so much.
Oh. Thank you. Well,
And thank
yeah.
you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for all the help you're giving us.
I'm trying. You guys have been very patient with me. and I love
Oh, no.
We've been patient. Thank
You've
you.
been patient with us.
You put up with us.
Without-
Me.
So I guess without further ado, it's
We're done.
11:36 a.m. and I declare the meeting adjourned.
Thanks, John. Okay.
Everybody.
You want me to take?
Yeah, take them. They're
Okay.
handy. They're not,
Well,
they're, especially, I think this is reserve, yeah, reserve guidelines. That's the document that sort of recommends. That's the recommendation. Before we go on,
Close out.
yeah, because,
this needs to happen.
Does this stay set up? Do we?
oh,
Time.